I think it comes as a surprise to no one. I'm kind of a big Prism fan. So, needless to say, I'm pretty excited about the announcement of the new Prism. So, in this video today, I just wanted to spend some time talking about Prism. Basically, just kind of want to gush about her and speculate about her because I'm excited. So, I want to talk about two things really. My hopes for what the new Prism will be like, and just like playstyle and things like that. And then my actual speculation of what we will see on the card and on the weapon potentially. So let's just jump right into it. I want to start with, first of all, my hopes for new Prism. With all this being said, I would still play her if she released as is, where her hero text is just cold foil and she didn't even get a weapon. I would still just play blank text Prism with less life and Iris. That's how excited I am for this hero. Prism is, I think, my favorite deck I have ever played in any card game before. So it was a little bit of a blow losing it as early as she rotated out, but what are you going to do? Such is life. My first hope with new Prism is, in some capacity, we can still play the aura playstyle that old Prism used to have. It doesn't have to be as strong as it was before. I can see people thinking that was a bit overtuned. I never thought it was, but, whatever. I'm a simp. I liked my deck. I enjoyed playing it, so maybe I'm biased there. I'm willing to accept I'm biased. But I would like to maintain that playstyle in some way, shape, or form. I thought it added a piece to the puzzle of the metagame that we kind of have needed, a setup deck to punish fatigue decks and such. So, and I just personally enjoyed the playstyle of it, that like slowly building up to this inevitability and just killing your opponent with it. I enjoy that playstyle. So I would like, in some way, shape, or form, to retain that. It could just be that Iris is our way to retain it and we sideboard this, but it would be nice if the weapon let us do it in some way. I hope that she has, either between her card pool or her hero text and weapon, some way to more easily deal with breakpoint damage or just like awkward damage like rune chance. Otherwise, I foresee the allies with ward being very difficult to actually play, since just leaking one damage, you lose a full ally. So if your opponent just pokes you for one a bunch of times, are you going to give them a full card on one every time? At least with rune chance, you can just like pitch a blue and AB, 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 but that's not always the most efficient thing that you can do. And then it requires sometimes that you play like AB2 for a Rosetta, if that's still in the format at the time. So I hope that she has some way to deal with awkward attacks like that, where she's not just completely hosed by that. I think my biggest thing, and so far it looks like this is the case, that her playstyle does not revolve around Phantasm. I think flavorfully, Phantasm makes a lot of sense. It's like, you're creating these illusions, and then you're asking the question of like, are you strong enough to see through the illusion? I think that's like a cool flavor, but mechanically, I think it's really uninteresting and plays really poorly. It just leads to like feast or famine high roll moments. It puts a big tax on sideboarding for other decks of they just like have to play poppers in their side, otherwise they're just sacking this matchup. And it's also like not interesting gameplay wise. It's just do you have the popper? I guess I get hosed. That doesn't lead to fun games, in my opinion. And on that same note, I would like to move away from that, because I really didn't enjoy that with Dromai. I found that Dromai was not the most fun deck to play. You're constantly fighting against your own deck, and then you have Phantasm on top of that. Like, having to pitch reds is one thing, and like playing reds, that's like, okay, whatever. Like the rate in our cards maths out in such a way where that's fine. But the whole Ash mechanic and just dealing with that constantly was a big headache and just didn't lead to the most fun gameplay. I think initially the puzzle's kind of interesting to solve, but then after a while it just turns into a chore on your day-to-day gameplay with the deck. So if the new Prism moves away from that, I would appreciate that. Like, I think allies would be much better without having to deal with that. I think them having ward is enough of a counterplay to deal with them, where I think that's also interesting enough to kind of have that back and forth gameplay. The other thing that I really want for her too is for the ally playstyle to kind of be like reminiscent of what it was like playing auras. I think that my favorite games of playing auras was not the ones where it's like Guardian, where I'm just playing the auras and I could just deterministically win if I just block properly. And not the hyper aggro ones where I play the auras, they ignore it, and they just go face and kill me. That like middle ground where we're kind of like fighting over stuff and we're both making a lot of meaningful decisions about attacks and blocks and what's worth killing, what's worth going face. I think those are really interesting games, and I really hope that the ally Prism style can retain it, where I present this threat to my opponent, I ask them the question, would you like to go face or would you like to attack this? And then if they go from me, I have a lot of agency over the game. Now it's like, okay, is this worth me defending? Should I just take this hit and let my guy die, but gain the effective life because it died, because they just sent a big number at my face? And then on top of that, like, okay, I can kind of pick and choose which ones die here, where it's like, I have a couple, I can let this one, like, block a little bit of damage, let this one soak up the rest of the damage with its ward, but then I let the one that I really want to stay around. There's, like, a lot of interesting decision-making that could happen there, and I think that might lead to some fun games, where I didn't feel like that was the case. Also with Dromai, I felt like I didn't really have a lot of agency over what was going on. Now that would still be the case here. If I play out, just like fart out a bunch of allies, my opponent can just go kill an ally, kill an ally, kill an ally, and I have no agency over that. So we'll have to see how that balances out. But the trade-off of them having ward instead of phantasm, I think, will lead to more interesting back and forth gameplay instead of just do you have the popper. We'll have to see kind of the math on the cards, though, of like how they're balanced comparatively. But being able to play better pitch cards in your deck and not having to play a sub-game with your Ash, I think will lend it to a more fluid gameplay. I do think Dromai would be fun if it weren't for the Ash, and if it was just you have to pitch a red to play a dragon, something like that, where you're still having to go through that gameplay loop, but the amount of times that you're just like, I can't play the game because of the whole Ash mechanic is really frustrating. And if we don't have that with Prism, that'd be nice. But that's pretty much it for what I'm hoping Prism has. I'd like to still play auras. I'd like to move away from Phantasm. And it'd be nice if she could deal with awkward damage breakpoints to fight over her board, so she's not just like hosed by Viserai or Katsu. Like, at least it would still be a game. Even if she's not favored, I'd like it to still be a game there. Now, jumping into speculation of what we're actually going to see with Prism, let's just start with this. First of all, the first thing I really noticed with her, as everyone does, is she starts with less life. My initial thought with that was like, okay, maybe it's like their way of balancing her, where, like, what if we just gave you Prism again, but nerfed it with less life? I don't think that's the angle they're going for, though. I tend to think that they're a bit more creative than that. My thinking is all the other heroes that we've had that have less life pretty much are because they can play on the opponent's round, so maybe we see more instant speed stuff, or it could just be because of the allies with ward and everything, where you're effectively buffing your life total, so she's secretly much tankier than she looks at first glance, if you know what I mean. The weird thing with that, though, is Dromai is the same way, where Dromai is probably one of the highest effective HP total heroes in the entire game, but she didn't take a nerf to her HP. It could be that there's something else at play there. One of my thinkings is that you get to make spectral shields frequently with her. One of the things I was thinking of is when a non-token card you control with ward is destroyed. It could be due to it dying from your opponent killing it, or attacking you when it dies, or it could be like a beginning of turn trigger with like some of the new ward cards that we got in the last set, where they like beginning of your turn destroy it, get the thing. This card goes to your soul and then you make a spectral shield. Like, it could be something like that, where you're starting with less life, but you're getting free spectral shields. So if you want to think of it this way, would you take this trade offer? You start with 8 less life, but you start with, I guess you start with wouldn't be the right word, but you gain 8 armor over the course of the game. Now, obviously in this scenario, we need to have 8 things see this effect, but like, if you think about it that way, armor generally is better than raw life total because you're stopping on hit effects, and you can kind of pick and choose when you use it. And if that's the case, that's very powerful if she's able to make special shields in some way, shape, or form like that. And I think that's a very good reason for her to start with less life, because she's effectively starting with more life. That ended up being the case with old Prism a lot of the time, where she had a normal life total, but then she didn't have armor back in the day, really. She just didn't get a fridge of armor like other heroes did. But then she still effectively started the game with some amount of armor because of the spectral shield she'd make over the course of the game. So kind of like balanced that out. And I assume her hero ability will have something to do with soul, because she's a light hero. If we look at the other ones we've had, light, soul, it's going to be somewhere on the card. So I'm interested to see what that is. I'm assuming it's going to be like the ward soul thing like I already mentioned. The next thing that I'm really looking at with her is pitch color matters. So far, all of the illusionists we've had have had some sort of pitch color matters. With Prism, it was when you pitch a yellow. With Dromai, it's when you pitch a red or when you play a red. So we might run into something like that again. I was thinking of like some sort of balanced Luminaris, where it's like, if a yellow is pitched to an attack, that attack gains go again. So with the allies, they cost 2 to attack with. It could be that you pitch a yellow to that ally, and then since you pitched a yellow to the attack, it then gains go again retroactively. I think that would be a way to kind of spiritually have like a successor to Luminaris, where it does a similar thing of you're pitching yellows to gain go again, but it's not pitch a yellow, the whole chain gets go again. I also don't think that's really too much of an issue to have that effect. You look at Dromai, it's play a red, your whole chain gets go again. That's so good. We have to remember that this is going to be a hero that does not have a weapon naturally. So if the weapon doesn't attack, they do kind of need it to be a little pushed comparatively to other weapons, since they need to make up for that lost ground. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for us to have just a functionally very similar Luminaris, but we'll have to see. I definitely think we'll have some sort of pitch color matters, and I imagine it's just going to be yellow again, because that just makes sense. Why would we do blue? All of her stuff is yellow. Of course it's going to be that again. It's just in what way? And I think it'll probably be pitching it again instead of like Dromai where you play it. I think that just kind of mechanically makes sense with Prism. I think something else we could see on the weapon too could potentially be an alternate attack for your allies, where like the allies, so far the 2 that we've seen, you can pay 2 to attack with them, and you just use the face value of the attack on it, and then they have the remove something from soul to get the extra trigger. We could see an alternative attack written on the weapon, where it's like kind of like Luminaris, where you just attack for 1 for 0 mana. We could see something like that, where the allies have their written attack, and then the weapon gives them a secondary attack, and you kind of choose which one you want to do. I think that's like lower on my list of things that I expect to see, but I think that is a knob that they could turn on the weapon. But yeah, that's like the main things that I'm really expecting to see with her. I think that we'll see a ward-focused hero that utilizes its soul and makes spectral shields, and that the weapon will give you go again. Sums up my thoughts on Prism. I'm really excited for her. I'll honestly play her even if she doesn't have any hero text. I'll just play Iris Prism with less life and still have fun with the game. I don't care. I just want to play my deck again. If you guys have any thoughts and speculation, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas and just hype up Prism. I will be obviously doing coverage of Prism when she comes out and doing some deck techs and stuff, so please stay tuned for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace, YouTube.